I'd like to start out by saying that this has been a very concerning event in every way. We realize consequences of somebody being in a situation like this. Can't say that I know what it feels like for people that are examining this situation, because I don't, but I wouldn't. I don't want to dismiss that at all. It is a really serious event. There has been, from my viewpoint, a great deal of support, concern, thoughtfulness, awareness put around this situation. We've had President Bounds, we've had Chancellor Green. Shawn has been in it from the minute that we found out. We've had our medical people on hand advising us, giving us information. I made a recommendation to these folks in a meeting. We talked about it for a long time about what's best to do. It's a hard situation. And we decided to do what you already know that we did, which is from my standpoint, as far as a penalty for a coach that stays on, it's as significant a penalty as I have seen for an assistant coach. 2 weeks suspended without pay and missing 4 games with our team, which sends us into the Big Ten schedule. So there's going to have to be a lot of adjusting. We know how to do that within our staff, but that's the penalty. We, as a staff, want to represent this school at the highest level, represent Shawn and President Bounds and Ronnie at the highest level. We will fight like crazy to do that. Our job is to do a great job developing our young men all the time and win games. And that's all I want people to know about what we're doing. And so we're going to fight like crazy to do that. I have a lot of faith in Keith. Keith is the same guy I hired a year ago. He might be a better guy, and he made a terrible mistake. And we have decided to support him, give him an opportunity to work with our kids. The primary reason for that, many of you think it will be the coaching and the recruiting. What I think it is he has got a tremendous influence on our team and on his players. He's one of the best I've been around. He talks real life stuff to these kids. These kids listen to him. They change under him. He has impacted them. I'll go back and say, I know it was a terrible mistake. We're going to support him. We're going to trust him, and we're going to go forward. I guess we're going to open it up for questions.
Mike, is that the penalty that he got, is that the one that you recommended, or was there something added or taken away from it by the athletic department?
I threw out ideas about suspension and about missing games, and then we kind of threw it out there and went from there as a group. And I can't thank those guys enough for the support that they gave us and the thoughtfulness that was put in, and I hate it, but the time they had to spend with it, but they did it, and they did it willingly and as part of our family here. I found out once again how Nebraska will try to every time do the right thing. We're in a school that is trying to do it right. All right? That doesn't mean we won't make mistakes, as you've already seen, but these guys, they stand for it. We have to set that example. You know, one of our lines is we always have to remember that we always represent. And so this is us as a group today, and it's going to get better.
Who would you say made the ultimate decision on?
I think it was a group effort, Steve. I made the recommendation of, it was brought up, Mike, what do you want to do? And then the discussion started, which I appreciated. I appreciated the question, and then I appreciated the discussion.
Mike, his mistake is not without precedent. Would a player with 3 DUIs still be on your team?
Yes, he would. Under our situation right now, am I right? That they would miss multiple games, but they would still be on the team.
You talked about his impact to these players and his coaching style. How crucial is it not to have him for 4 games, some of those being big ones?
No doubt this will hurt us, and it should. We're going to have to compensate. We're going to have to go. That's what happens when we have an incident with a player and he's going to miss a game. It hurts us. It's never good. There is no spinning it. This is a real deal, and it should hurt Keith. It should be a great lesson for him. We're going to support him in it, Now he's got to support us and be ready to go. We're going to compensate in every way. Danny oftentimes now meets with all the receivers and the quarterbacks together. Hardy Buck has been with us a long time. He's a graduate assistant. He works the individual drills. I'm going to go throw my 2 cents in a lot with these guys. We'll make it. We'll be fine. We'll be prepared, but it's an adjustment. And but we're not going to let it be a distraction to winning.
Mike, what's going to be the impact on the recruiting trail? What will his assignments be any different this recruiting cycle?
No, his assignments will not change. How it impacts us, we can only know that going forward. Like I said, we have a vision of how we want to do this thing and represent it. We're going to fight to make sure people know that. We'll get past this part of it. We'll prove who we are, and we'll go forward with that recruiting. I think it's going to be good. I think the kids that have committed know why they committed, and they will stick with that.
Mike, during the hiring process, did Keith volunteer that he had 2 prior DUIs, or did you find that out on the background check?
You know, what we did, I talked about it on Monday, and what we did is we went through the exact right process and we hired him. Now, anything else about that part of it, because it's a personnel deal, and Keith is going to be in court. He's going to go through the judicial process, so I'm not going to talk about that until they get to that part of it.
Mike, he's got court dates coming up. What are you going to do if he's in jail or on house arrest in October and November?
We as we go forward, we'll make contingency plans for how this will work. We expect to have him back at the appointed time that I told you, and then from there, when something else happens, we're going to have a plan for it. And it will be, we can adjust. If he's not available, it's either going to be me or it's going to be a graduate assistant. Some other assistant will pick up the slack. But we can, if he's not available for some reason, we can actually put on the road a graduate assistant as our ninth guy during that time. I believe that's true. We've done that before.
Are there further punishments? Further punishments once
There are further stipulations that I'm not going to go into. That's not the end of the thing, because some of these, we call them stipulations, but they're actually his legal choice. So I'm not going to tell you what the other stipulations are, but there's a pretty good list of those things that accompany these penalties.
Is this counseling inpatient or outpatient?
Right now, it has been inpatient to this point, in-house to this point.
No, but is
He's not going into a
He's not going out. Or
Hey, Mike.
facility.
outpatient is right. Outpatient, sorry.
One thing that stood out in your statement earlier today was that you'd like to see him take this and use as an education, and he pledged to do education opportunities for the team and community. I'm sure you've got plenty to flush out with that, but what would you like to see from an education standpoint for the team and community?
Well, our feeling is that Keith is an impactful person anyway. You know, as he's when he speaks to our team and when he coaches our team, he's dynamic. And what I will encourage him as he, you know, with a, let's just put it at this degree of bad, right, where we are right now. With that, he can be an educator and he can be good and he can be passionate, and he knows, I think, obviously he realizes the gravity of this whole deal. I think he'd be a great impact and teacher. That would be my hope and goal for him, that he can use this to be real positive, to help somebody else learn. It certainly has been for me with our team, and our team knowing what's going on in this process, because I've been gone from them a lot. As we've examined this whole thing, I mean, our folks here do a great job of making sure we cover the bases and examine every possibility. So, you know, for our team, they get it, I think, more than ever, that what happens and what the ramifications can be, how this thing goes forward.
After September 1st, is he back at practice? Is he recruiting or making recruiting calls, able to do that?
He can be back in our building, working in our building. He will not be at the games. He will not participate in the games and on game day in any way.
But he can conduct meetings during the week?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Mike, was firing Keith ever on the table?
You know, I'll tell you what, everything under the sun was on the table. Okay, so that's...
You mentioned his influence as one of the reasons to keep him. If he were a less impactful assistant coach, would he still be on the staff?
Dirk, that's really, really hypothetical. And as you know, with that question, what's the story? You know, we're gonna have to examine a whole new set of circumstances for me to really answer that question. I know that this is a severe penalty. And I know that 50%, you know, it's going to be one of those out there publicly. We just had to do what we thought was right for Nebraska, for the department, for the football team, for Keith, for all of us, and go forward.
Will you have involvement in the recruiting weekends during the suspension in September?
During the suspension, he will not be here at all. Okay.
Did you want to move as quickly as possible with getting the suspension or figuring out what you want to do so you could focus on your main thing, football?
Well, that's an interesting point because that's been the week. You know, that's since Sunday at 9 o'clock in the morning. This has been dominating. So but we wanted to do it justice with the conversation too, and that's what I really appreciate about this place is they're going to make sure we examine it all and do it right, and everybody's in on it, which is really good. So we did it as quickly as we could without, I think, rushing to judgment in any way.
Any questions for Shawn?
Yeah, Shawn, Keith had said in his statement that was put out this morning that he knows he has no margin of error at Nebraska. So another offense, would that be a firing at that point? And is there anything short of another DUI that would, you know, as far as alcohol use or anything like that, that would lead to a dismissal?
Well, clearly we have high expectations and high standards, and there's no doubt that Keith understands the gravity of the major failing in judgment that he had this past weekend. And I think he also understands, as we all understand, he has very, very small margin of error moving forward. So it's hard to get into all those hypotheticals, but I think you could honestly come up with some thoughts as to if he did anything further in that regard, would he be here? No.
Hey, Shawn, did he come here with essentially a clean slate? Would that be a good way to characterize it after the two DUIs?
Well, I think I would refer back to what Mike said, and Mike said it well on Monday. He went through the normal processes of hiring here at the university, and he was hired. You know, beyond that at this point, I really can't speculate or give any further specifics for a couple reasons. One, it's a personnel matter. And two, keeping in mind that Keith is walking through a judicial process, and we want to make sure that he has an opportunity to walk through that.
Shawn, did his prior arrests have any impact on his punishment?
I think the totality of the circumstances had an impact on what we looked at. You know, again, major failure in judgment. Mike has done a tremendous job throughout the process. We're fortunate to have a football coach here that stands for all the right things and was very thoughtful in the process. And so all of that went into it. I think all those qualities that Mike talked about that Keith brings to the table, but you got to look at the other part of it too. So I can tell you, we looked at it very, very thoroughly. And we talked to a number of people to make sure that we were headed in the right direction, and I think we are. He's a young man that's worthy of an opportunity of redemption here, and so we'll see how it goes. But I have a lot of faith that he will do the right thing moving forward. And as Mike said, he is dynamic within our building. He is changing lives, right? And so our hope is that he'll be able to do that. With the misgivings that he's had up to this point. And it's a two-way street. We're reaching out to help him and strengthen his life. He's going to do the same for us.
Mike kind of addressed it, but I guess what do you say to the people that are going to push back a little bit in the public, just to, you know, not agreeing that he should be allowed to stay after that?
Well, Eric, as you know, we're accustomed to a lot of pushback on a lot of different things in the public. And we know that this was a very, very serious matter. And I think we all understood through the process that we weren't going to make everybody happy. especially those who have been uniquely affected by that sort of behavior. And so we respect that and appreciate that.
From a legality standpoint, was that a firing offense? I mean, did he reach the terms of his contract to where you could have gone down that path?
Absolutely.
You're a lawyer, Shawn. If he were to do something else, isn't Nebraska liable for anything based on the fact that you didn't fire him in this circumstance?
Sam, I appreciate the question. I don't know if I'm in a position to be able to talk about those hypotheticals. All I can tell you is where we're at today, and we believe that we've made the appropriate judgments and put the appropriate procedures in place moving forward. So I really can't comment any further on that.
Would you agree this is a risk?
Absolutely.
Was it a calculated risk?
There's a lot of due diligence that went into this, and at the end of the day, we're in this all together, and we have a wonderful staff with a wonderful head coach, and we're going to continue to move forward.
Will you have, or are you planning on a blanket policy in the future if something like this happens within the department, whether it be an assistant coach or another employee?
No, we're gonna handle all of our employees on a case-by-case basis, and follow the appropriate procedures here at the university.